I was folding my favorite travel shirt when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. The cotton was that perfect worn-in blue, the one I always reached for when I wanted to feel a little luck on the road. My suitcase lay open on the bed like a promise. Half full of neatly rolled shirts and a paper folder of printouts walking tours, museum times, a reservation at a tiny bistro near the Louvre that my daughter, Lindsay, swore looked like a movie set. I had Sinatra playing low from a tiny speaker come. Fly with me, and I was debating brown leather Oxfords versus those comfortable gray sneakers that don't look like sneakers in photos. 6 hours until departure. The tickets to Charles de Gaulle were tucked beside my passport, both of them crisp, gleaming. My heart carried that small, fizzy flutter of pre-travel excitement, the kind I hadn't felt since my late wife, Marianne. And I took Lindsay to Disneyland when she was 6, and she couldn't stop shouting about the monorail. The phone buzzed again. Lindsay's name. I smiled, thumb already moving, expecting last-minute gate updates or a weird at security. Selfie. Instead, the message came in like ice water. You are not coming to Europe with us. Todd says it's better if this trip is family only. My eyes skimmed it once, twice, a third time, as if repetition could unlock a different meaning. Family only. I stared past the words to my suitcase, to the guidebooks with yellow sticky notes peeking out like hopeful flags, to the new camera in its box. I felt ridiculous for the excitement still pulsing in me, a drum beating for a parade that had been canceled. They took Todd's parents. I would see that part later, smiling at the Eiffel Tower, wine glasses raised, the caption, "Beginning of the best family vacation ever." But right then, all I had was the blue light of my phone and the sound of Sinatra melting into static. I sat on the edge of the bed. My hands steadied long enough to type back the only word I could find. Okay. I closed the suitcase. The latches clicked with polite finality, like an usher drawing a curtain. Then I called the airline. The hold music was a tune I almost recognized, something light and jingly that grated against the sudden emptiness of my living room. "I'm sorry to hear about your change of plans, Mr. Owens," the representative said, and I heard the catch in my own voice as I gave her the confirmation number after the house felt unfamiliar. The evening news murmured from the TV, but I couldn't tell you what even state they were reporting from. Mrs. Peterson's golden retriever barked next. Door hype, pitched and enthusiastic, like he'd discovered something very important about a squirrel. I stared at a glossy brochure about Roman architecture arches, lifting like prayer against a bright sky, then set it down on the end. Table, as if the gesture could set everything right again. My phone glowed on the coffee table, I told myself. Not to open Facebook. Then I did. Todd's parents, Elaine and Gordon, stood beaming in front of the Eiffel Tower, both of them wearing matching hats that said Paris. The caption, "Beginning of the best family vacation ever." I clicked through, because apparently I needed a second wound to prove the first one was real. 4 faces next. Elaine and Gordon. Todd and my Lindsay, her smile big and bright and a little glassy. A Parisian cafe blurred behind them, all tiny. Tables and wine glasses. Caption, "So grateful for family time in the city of light, family only." I set the phone down. Picked it up, set it down again, and walked to the kitchen window, where the reflection of a 62-year-old man stared back at me, gray around the temples. A little too thin since Marianne passed, eyes gone hollow, holding a phone lit up with the faces of people who loved my daughter and had somehow decided I wasn't family enough to sit beside her in an airplane seat. I didn't sleep much. When I did, I dreamed I was late to a flight, running down a carpeted hallway that kept lengthening, doors telescoping away. Morning came gray and flat through the curtains. The coffee was too bitter. Or maybe I'd forgotten how to swallow around. A hurt this big dot by late morning in Chicago. It was afternoon in Paris. I took a breath and called my daughter. "Hi, Dad," she answered, bright, girlish, the way she always sounded when she was somewhere bustling and new. Behind her, street noise, a burst of laughter that could have been Todd, a small bell clinking as a shop door swung shut. "I need to understand something," I said. "What's that?" She sounded distracted, probably looking at a map or reaching for a croissant, tracing the city with that quick, excited energy I loved in her. I saw the photos. Todd's parents are with you. Silence. The kind with weight. When she spoke again, the brightness was gone. Dad, we can explain. You said it was family only. The words were out of my mouth before I could soften them. What am I? Her breath came in short, visible pieces. Look, Todd says you can be. Overwhelming. There it was. Not the whole of it, but enough. The word sat between us. Lopsided and mean. Overwhelming, I repeated. Because I booked the flights. Because I researched the museums. Because I wanted a photo of us by the Seine. It's not that, she said quickly. It's complicated. Todd wanted this to be a chance for him to bond with his parents. He was feeling like you were, I don't know, taking over. He said something about how you're always there, and it's been a weird year. He just wants to lead, be the provider, by uninviting the man who paid for your trip and your new house. I said, voice calm in a way that surprised even me. Her inhale hissed into the receiver. We were going to pay you back for the tickets. Todd said we should. I closed my eyes. Okay, Dad. I hope Paris is beautiful, I said softly. And Lindsay. Please send me a picture of that bistro near the Louvre, the one you found. I'd still like to see it through your eyes. I hung up, walked into the quiet, and listened to the weight of it settle over me like dust. Before I go any further, if you're listening to this or reading it somewhere, tell me where you're from. This is a long story, and if you stick with me, I promise you won't believe what happened when they came home. The house I hadn't planned to own property at 62. Retirement was supposed to be a lake, a little cabin someday maybe, a kayak cutting across morning water. Then Lindsay met Todd. He was a sales manager at a tech outfit out in Schaumburg. Handsome in a catalog way, quick with a compliment, and quicker with a plan. They got engaged fast. Marianne had been gone 2 years by then. I wanted dackingly for something soft to happen to my girl. They found a new build in Naperville. White siding, black windows, a kitchen island you could land a plane on. It was too much money for them, but I had the savings. I had the impulse. I had this old American habit of believing that new houses can make new lives. It went in my name at first. The plan was to sign the deed over to them on there. First anniversary. Call it a surprise. Call it me being sentimental and a little old-fashioned. I paid the builder. I covered taxes. I installed the backyard fence myself because I don't trust anyone else with a post-hole digger. I told them the only thing I wanted in return was Sunday dinners and good manners. Then came the little things. Todd forgetting to invite me to the housewarming because it was more of a friends thing. Lindsay canceling twice on Sunday dinner because they were exhausted. A vacation talk at Thanksgiving that turned into Todd arguing that Munich was better than Paris because of the beer. And then somehow it was his parents' dream to see Europe, and wouldn't it be great if they came too? I didn't say no. I never did. Not then. That morning with Paris clicking past them in a carousel of photos and my kitchen smelling like coffee I didn't want, I took out a legal pad. I wrote payments at the top, underlined it twice, and started listing everything I'd covered for the house and the upcoming trip. I wasn't angry in the hot, sloppy way. It was something colder, clearer, focused. I called my bank. First Summit, this is Samantha. How can I help you today? Hi, Samantha. Need to cancel 3 automatic payments. Property tax, escrow, insurance, and the solar panel install that's supposed to draft on the 15th. We went point by point. Samantha was a pro-efficient, sympathetic, without spilling into pity. All right, Mr. Owens, she said finally. Those are canceled as of now. Thank you. I called the builder too. Why Sir Sozy, Sir Surzy, Sir Suzy, Sir Suzy, Surzy, 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 Surzy. And sometimes the way out of danger and sometimes the way forward is into someone else's arms. When I called my attorney, she was at lunch. She called back within the hour. Dan, said the voice of reason I'd paid for on 3 separate occasions these past 10 years. Carol Mendez. What's going on? I told her, line by line. Carefully. Not the emotion. I wasn't paying her for the parts of me that ached. I told her about the deed, the intention to gift, the money already spent on the house, the trip, the recent shift. I don't want to be cruel, I said. I want to be clear. I want to be done being used like an ATM that cooks a roast. On Sundays, okay, Carol said, crisp. First, you own the property. They are occupants with your permission, not tenants. However, you should treat them as month-to-month tenants for propriety. Serve notice. Document everything. Do not change the locks while they're inside. Do not move their personal property without giving them time and notice to retrieve it. You can sell the house with occupants, but most buyers will want it vacant. You want them out? You'll serve a 30-day notice. Do it by certified mail. And post one on the door. Start the clock now. And if I sell, you can sell, she said simply. You should be transparent with the buyers about the notice period. If they want a quick close, you'll likely need to offer compensation for a use and occupancy agreement for the remainder of the notice or delay closing. Do you have a realtor? I did. Not a close friend, but the kind of woman you want on your side in a negotiation. 6'1", red blazer. Smile that looks friendly until she counters your offer and you realize you've made a mistake. I'll call her, I said. And Dan, Carol added. Document the text. People get litigious when houses are involved. I looked at the message again. You are not coming to Europe with us. Todd says it's better if this trip is family only. I took screenshots, emailed them to myself, printed them with the timestamps. I walked down the hallway then, because I needed to move, and opened the door to the third bedroom, the one with the box of Marianne's scarves and the shoebox of Lindsay's crayon drawings and the bowling trophy I never had the heart to toss. I took out the photo of us at Disneyland, Lindsay in a pink sweatshirt too big for her, mouse ears askew, perched on my shoulders, her cheeks apple round and bright.
Ow.
Marianne had caught us mid, laugh everything loose and open and real. This isn't who you are, I said softly to the room that held the pieces of people I missed. This isn't who I am either. Listing Trina, I said when the realtor picked up. It's Dan Owens. I'm going to sell Black Sparrow. She made that sharp inhale sound good agents make when they smell a commission. We can do that. Can I ask why? No, I said, and then sighed. Personal reasons. Got it. We'll keep it simple. You want to list next week? List today, I said. Photos as is, disclosures in the packet. Serve. The 30-day notice this afternoon. Occupied? Yes, I'll be honest. That's going to narrow your pool. But it's a hot market. We can attract investors or families timing their move. Professional photography? Rush. Charming modern farmhouse with high-end finishes in a coveted school district. I could hear her smile. Do you want to? Set a buyer's credit to offset the occupancy. I'll cover a short use and occupancy if needed, I said. But I'd prefer a buyer who can close after the notice period. Clean offer. Understood. A pause. You sure about this? Dan, I'm sure. I printed the 30-day notice Carol had emailed me and drove to Black Sparrow Lane. The neighborhood was quiet. Lawns mowed in parallel stripes. A blue bicycle helmet hung on a mailbox across the street like a forgotten thought. Their house, my house, glowed, a polite white in the late afternoon sun. I don't know what I expected to feel standing on the walkway I'd poured with my own hands. Shame, grief, victory. What I felt was weary. Weary and old and somehow clean. I taped one copy of the notice to the front door and slid another into the mail slot. Then I took a photo of both with my phone for the record. The wicker bench I'd picked out sat on the porch, cushions in a navy stripe. For a second, I could see Lindsay curled there with iced tea, bare feet tucked under her, sighing a hello when I came by unannounced with leftover lasagna. I let the image go like something afloat in a sink, water rising. Back in the car, called Carol. Notices posted, I said. Good. Email me the photos. And Dan, be ready for phone calls. Got be calm. Repeat the 3 sentences I'm going to give you. I own the property. You are month-to-month occupants. Per the attached notice, you have 30 days to vacate. I will make arrangements for you to retrieve your belongings. Do not deviate. Do not argue. Got it. On the way home, I drove past Fox and Finch, the bakery Marianne used to swear by. The smell of cinnamon rolled out of the open door like a promise. I went in and bought 2 cinnamon knots. It's one for me. One for I didn't know who. Sometimes grief makes you buy 2 of a thing you only need 1 of. I ate one in the car. The other sat on the passenger seat, tender and stubbornly whole. That night, it was impossible not to look. Instagram, Facebook. Stories that bloomed and evaporated like mayflies. Lindsay on a bridge over the Seine. Lindsay in front of a painting. At the Musée d'Orsay. Lindsay raising a glass at a cafe lit by 100 little bulbs. Todd's hand on the back of her chair like a claim. I didn't begrudge her the joy on her face. I did not. But sometimes love and hurt live in the same apartment. Forced roommates who cook on different burners, but end up sharing a pan. I slept, finally, without dreaming. Morning brought a text from an unknown number. This is Elaine. We heard you're upset about Paris. Please don't make a scene. It's embarrassing. We'll make this up to you with a dinner when we're back. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I turned the phone face down on the table and laughed a little, this dry, humorless sound that made even me wince. I didn't reply. At 10. Sharp. My phone rang again. Trina, photography done, she said. I fast-tracked the listing description. We go live at noon. By 3. We had to investor offers below asking, and one full-price offer from a pediatric surgeon relocating from Seattle who did not want to move her kids until October and was thrilled with a 30-day close. She's willing to wait and then take possession, Trina said. Full price, no contingencies. She's a cash buyer. Name is Dr. Amelia Grant. Take it, I said. Send docs. I read the purchase agreement twice, sent it to Carol, read it again. The numbers hit like something I'd set in motion without fully understanding the consequences and now couldn't pull back from. Signed at 4:30, when the sun slanted low and the street noise softened. I called Lindsay. She picked up on the second ring. Dad, we're about to go into Saint-Chapelle. It's this church with the craziest stained glass. I sold the house, I said gently. Everything on her end went silent. Even Paris had the decency to stop for a second. What? Her voice dropped to a whisper. Dad, what are you talking about? Black Sparrow. The deed has always been in my name. I served you and Todd with a 30-day notice. I accepted an offer this afternoon. You have until then to retrieve your belongings. I'll cover storage for 6 months and movers. The buyer is taking possession after the 30 days. She made a sound I couldn't categorize. Shock, hurt, a little indignation like a flame catching in dry grass. You sold our house? No, I said, voice steady. I sold my house. Dad, she said, and now she sounded so young, I had to steady myself against the counter, my hand landing on the cool, familiar edge like anchoring myself to earth. How could you do that? That was our home. I offered you a home, I said, in exchange for respect, for Sunday dinners, for the basic courtesy of still being your father. You uninvited me from a trip I planned and paid for, and called it family only, while you stood under the Eiffel Tower with Todd's parents? You told me I was overwhelming. Maybe I am, maybe I was. But I am done funding a life where I am the one person excluded from the word family. Dad, please, she whispered. I could hear her moving the rub of fabric, the scrape of a shoe on stone. Todd didn't want. It wasn't like that. I will pay for movers, I said, gentler now. I will pay for 6 months of storage and your security deposit on an apartment if you need it. But I won't be your silent bankroll. Not anymore. Can we talk when I get home? She asked, breathless, like she'd been walking fast or running to keep up with something she couldn't catch. We can, I said, but understand the clock started today. You have 30 days. Todd's voice flared in the background. Sharp. What is it, Linz? Come on. We're going to miss the... She covered the phone with her hand. I felt the old, familiar ache of being shut out of a conversation about my own child's life. Send me the notice. Shh, she said, brittle. Todd will handle it. I already did, I said. To the house and by email. Fine, she snapped. The line went dead. I stood very still in my kitchen, the clean zap of adrenaline fading, leaving something that felt like grief. I didn't know if I'd done the right thing. I only knew I'd done it with clear eyes. The next 30 days, if you've never sold a house with occupants, let me tell you, it's a strange dance. There are timelines and keys and a calendar you check twice a day like the answer might change. If you stare hard enough, Trina sent a notary to my house with the first round of closing documents. We'll do this in 2 stages, she explained. You sign, they sign. Funds in escrow, final walkthrough, key exchange after possession. The notary, a soft-spoken man with a navy tattoo on his forearm, slid papers my way and pointed with a capped pen. Sign here. Initial there. I wrote checks. One to a storage company for a climate-controlled unit, 6 months paid up. One to a moving company with 5-star reviews and a manager who said, "We treat your things like the memories attached to them." I wrote a letter to Lindsay that I rewrote 3 times, deleting the angry sentences, the petty ones, the ones that sounded like I was trying to win a debate. What remained was short, Linz. I love you. That has never been in question. I should have set boundaries sooner. That one's on me. There's a storage unit reserved for you, under your name. 6 months paid. I've engaged Westside Movers. Come on any day you choose. I'll cover 3 months of an apartment if you need it. If it helps to have numbers, I can afford that and still retire before. I'm 90. We can talk when you're ready. Dad, I taped the letter to a box of items. I knew were Lindsay's her college yearbooks, a jewelry box that had been Marianne's, a set of knitted throw blankets my sister had made in terrible 1970s colors that somehow looked trendy again in their living room. Calls came. Of course they did. Todd first. "Can't do this," he said. "This is illegal. You can't. Just sell our house out from under us." "It was never yours," I said, and then repeated Carol's 3 sentences like a liturgy. "I own the property. You're month-to-month occupants. As per the attached notice, you have 30 days to vacate. You'll see me in court." He snapped. "Then I'll see you there," I said quietly, and hung up. Elaine called too. She began angry and then slid toward, oily sweet. "Daniel, honey," she said, "you're hurt. I understand that. But this is a big reaction. Why don't you reconsider? We'll all come over next week and talk it out." "No," I said. "There's nothing to talk out." Gordon left a voicemail that I didn't listen to all the way through. "You've embarrassed my family," he began, and I deleted it with a flick of my thumb. Days marched. Lindsay posted fewer photos. When she did, I studied them. Her smile wasn't as bright. I wondered if she was sleeping. I wasn't, not really. On day 10, the notice time halfway gone, I got a text from Lindsay at 2:13 a.m. my time. "Are you awake?" "Was I always am at 2:13 these days?" I replied. "I'm up." The 3 dots pulsed. She wrote, deleted, wrote again. Finally, I didn't write that text the way I wanted. Todd was standing over me. He said family only. And I typed it because I didn't want a scene before the flight. I was scared. That sounds stupid, but I was. I stared at the words until they blurred. One typed and erased. Typed and erased. What I finally sent felt inadequate and true. "I'm sorry you felt scared. You don't have to be scared with me, will you?" "Be home when we land?" She asked a small question tucked into the bigger one. "Yes," I wrote. "I'll be home. Back in Paris." The cathedral windows filled her stories again, blue and red and gold swirling into saints and stars. Glass offered to light. The day the sale closed was the day the sky over Naperville pressed low and close. The air heavy in that way Chicago summers can be, cornfield humidity sneaking into the suburbs. I showered twice before noon, wearing one of Marianne's old t-shirts as if the cotton could give me courage by osmosis. The notary came. I signed the final documents. The funds moved like magic numbers in a line of text, the house transferring. From Daniel Owens to Amelia Grant, with a tidy official finality. It felt like pulling a splinter and realizing it had been longer than you thought, buried deeper. That afternoon, Trina texted a photo. The sold placard hung under the Ridgeview sign like an exclamation point. I drove by Black Sparrow at dusk. Fireflies started their electric punctuation in the yards. A boy across the street tried to trap one in his hands and then let it go. His mother calling him in from the porch. The house lights were off. I didn't go up. I sat in the car and watched the street through the wash of my own headlights. When I pulled into my driveway, Mrs. Peterson waved from her yard. "Evening, Mr. Owens," she called. Her golden retriever, Bailey, wagged so hard his whole body became a metronome. "Evening," I said. She looked at me a second longer than a neighbor usually does. "You okay?" I opened my mouth to say yes, said not really. Instead, she nodded like she'd expected that. "Well, I made two. Much ziti. And you're not going to let me eat the whole pan by myself, are you?" I smiled in spite of myself. "I suppose not." We ate on my back deck, the kind of simple meal that makes you remember how many of the best parts of life are the quiet, green ones. Crickets chirped. Bailey laid down in a boneless dog sprawl and snored softly. Mrs. Peterson talked about her sister's tomatoes. I told her about the house in a gentle outline, leaving out the parts that cut. "Family can do worse to you than strangers," she said when I finished, "because they know where the soft parts are." I slept that night like a man who had made a decision and was going to live with it. Homecoming flights from Paris usually land mid-afternoon. I knew because I had tracked a dozen of them when I was planning this trip. I made coffee and left it black on the counter, the aroma a bitter anchor. I put on the blue shirt I'd meant to wear to that first dinner in Paris, the one near the Louvre that looked like a movie set. And I stood at my living room window and waited for my phone to buzz. At 2:46 p.m., it did. We just landed. "Can we come over?" "Yes," I wrote. "Bring Todd." She asked, "That's your call." Okay, there was a beat. Then, "He's coming." At 3:31, I heard the car doors out front, the low rumble of a suitcase rolling over the uneven patch of sidewalk where the maple roots had nudged it up. I opened the door before they could knock. Lindsay stood on the porch. Hair a little frizzed from travel, eyes rimmed in that pink that means a person has been awake too long and thinking too hard. Todd stood beside her, jaw set in a straight line so tight it looked like it hurt. He had a tan and the posture of a man braced for an argument he intends to win. "Dad," Lindsay said, and just the one syllable undid me a little. "Come in." I said. They did. Todd looked around my living room like he was measuring it for contempt. I let him tea. "Water?" I asked. "No," Todd said. Lindsay shook her head no, too, and tucked her hair behind her ear in a gesture she's had since. She was 15. We sat. I took the armchair. They took the couch. It felt like a therapy session in a movie you can't pause. "You sold our house," Todd said without greeting, his voice flat. "I sold my house," I said. "It was in my name." "You told us it was ours," he said. "I told you I planned to gift it to you on your first anniversary." "Plans changed. Because your feelings were hurt," he said, and I saw it then, the central belief of Todd Whitaker's world, that other people's hurts are unreasonable. They interrupt his preferences, because my boundaries were trampled, I said. He laughed once, short. "You're petty, Dan. You always have been." "I'm human," I said. "Who paid for your wedding, your honeymoon extension, your bridge loan on the Audi? When you decided you couldn't drive your older car anymore, and the house you told everyone you saved up for in 9 months. I did. And I did it with love. But love starts looking a lot like enablement, when the person you love keeps writing you out of their life whenever it's inconvenient to include you." Lindsay stared at her hands. "Dad, I'm sorry," she said, and the two words were so soft I could have missed them if I were the kind of father who wanted to. "What do you want?" I asked her, not him. She looked up. There was a tremor in her lower lip. The one she gets when she's trying very hard to hold something together so it doesn't spill everywhere. "I want to fix this." "We're not moving," Todd said. "Over her. You can't make us. You have 30 days, I said. "I will not drag you out by your ankles. I will not throw your boxes onto the lawn. I've paid for movers and storage. If you'd like to stay past the notice, My attorney can draft a use and occupancy agreement for 2 weeks. And you can pay the new owner a market rate. But you will. Move. You'll regret this, Todd said. Maybe, I said. Doubt it. This is about control, he snapped. This is about respect.
Hey.
We sat in the quiet then, 3 people staring at the same rug and seeing 3 different rooms. Todd stood. We're leaving, he announced. This is ridiculous. Lindsay didn't stand. She reached for the strap of her purse, then set her hand still. She looked at me. Can I come by tomorrow? She asked. Alone. Yes, I said. So grateful I had to tuck my fingers into my palms to keep from reaching for her hand like she was 5. Todd made a noise that was part scoff, part something darker. We're going together, he said. No, she replied. And even in that single syllable, there was a new shape to her voice, something firmed by the heat of the past 10 days and the cold of the past 20 minutes. I'm coming by alone. He stared at her like he didn't know her. Maybe he didn't. Maybe this was a Lindsay. He hadn't met yet the version of herself that grows when you stop watering the old story and let it dry up. He left without a goodbye, the front door thudding behind him like a period that didn't quite fit the sentence. Lindsay and I sat in the wake of it. I'm so tired, she said. I'm tired of apologizing for wanting 2 things at once. I wanted you there, Dad. I also wanted to keep the peace. I keep picking the second thing. And then I hate who I am. I swallowed around the tightness in my throat. You don't have to pick peace that costs you yourself. She laughed a little wet. When did you get wise? About 20 minutes after I taped a notice to your door, I said. Which is to save recently and at great personal cost. She smiled. Quick. We took a picture on a bridge, she said. I thought you would have liked it. There was a woman singing under the archway. The song bounced off the stone. It was like being inside the sound. Send it to me, I said. I'd like to see it through your eyes. She nodded. Then, what happens now? You pack. I said, I schedule movers. We put your things in storage. You come here if you need to. Or you get an apartment. I'll pay 3 months and then it's yours. You talk to Todd. You decide what your marriage is going to be when the money that glued it together isn't on the table anymore. Her eyes filled and did not spill. Okay? And we go to Paris, I said, the words surprising both of us a little as they came out. Not tomorrow, not next month, but someday. You and me. And we'll sit at that bistro and order whatever. The locals order, and you'll laugh at how I pronounce everything. And it will be family only. She made the kind of sound that is almost a laugh and almost a sob. Okay, she said again. And this time it sounded like hope with a scar. When they came home, that night after she left, I did something I hadn't done in a very long time. I took out the albums from the hall closet and spread them on the living room floor. And I let an evening peel itself open into 100 moments that built a life. The next morning, I woke to the whine of a text I didn't want to read. From Todd's subject, legal action and, so it began. Asterisk, the subject line sat on my screen like a small, theatrical grenade. Legal action. Todd's email was full of words that sounded like they had been dragged through a law firm's brochure and left to dry, crooked, wrongful eviction. Constructive eviction. Promissory estoppel. Harassment. Emotional distress. He wrote that he would pursue all remedies. He wrote that his parents were witnesses to my pattern of control. I almost laughed at that last part before I felt how tired I was and didn't. I forwarded the email to Carol, my attorney, with a single sentence, for your review. I poured coffee, stood staring into the steam, the way some people stare into a fire pit and wait for a thing to appear. Carol replied 7 minutes later, do not respond to him. You served proper notice and closed the sale. You're in the clear. Any communication to or from Todd goes through me from now on. Focus today. Coordinate movers for Lindsay. Be calm. Document. If there's a disturbance, call Naperville PD non-emergency for a civil standby. She added one line at the end. You're doing the right, hard thing. Keep breathing. I set my phone down and walked to the window. The maple tree outside, doing that lazy summer, Rustle that feels like it's telling you a story you can't quite catch. At 9 a.m., my doorbell rang. Lindsay stood there in jeans and a navy t-shirt, hair pulled up, eyes sleeps, sore but steady. She had a paper cup of coffee and a canvas tote with the words, "I read banned books" printed on the side, some Christmas joke I'd bought her that had outlasted its season. "Hi, Dad," she said. "Hi," I said. We didn't hug right away. Sometimes when the wound is fresh, the first touch is the hardest. I stepped aside and she came in, stood in the living room, and looked around like she was reminding herself she knew this place. I told him I was coming here, she said. He was not thrilled. I can imagine. I told him I wasn't asking, she added, and then stepped up and put her arms around me so suddenly I had to catch my balance. She smelled like airport and shampoo and the Paris street she had left 12 hours ago. We sat at the kitchen table. She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup like it could warm more than her palms. I kept choosing peace, she said, staring. At the table, I kept calling it peace. It was just the quieter argument. You don't have to explain, I said. I do, she said. Quick, I do. Because I didn't say anything when I should have. He wanted his parents there because he wanted to be the one who knew things. That sounds small, but it's not small. It's a whole pattern. He doesn't like when you know more than he does. He knows you always. Show up, and he feels small. Next to that, so he makes me smaller to even it out. I sat with the words like I was holding something hot and careful. Has he ever? I started, and then couldn't finish? She understood. Not that, but he says. Things that make me check myself in the mirror before I leave the room. He makes me show him receipts. I told myself that was budgeting. It's not budgeting if you have to show your husband a receipt for a cup of coffee. I shut my eyes a second, the picture forming too clearly. Linz, I said, you can stay here. I'll pay for an apartment. I want you safe. No, she said. And I don't want to run so fast. I don't see my own feet, but I need options. You have them? I said. One of them is therapy with someone who isn't me. I can pay. I can drive you. I can sit in the lobby and pretend to read a magazine. She laughed a little, wet at the edges. Okay, she said. Yes. And I need to get my things out of the house. Movers are scheduled for one, I said. We'll start with what's clearly yours. We'll inventory. Nope. No arguing in rooms where we've already decided something. She nodded. He'll argue anyway, she said softly. But okay. We were on the driveway of Black Sparrow by 12:50. The sky had that white heat to it that makes sound feel like it's bouncing back at you. The West Side Movers truck rolled up at 1 sharp. The foreman got out mid-30s, Dodgers cap, clipboard, forearms like he knew how to lift heavy things without hating them. Marco, he said, offering a hand. We treat your things like the memories attached to them. I smiled in spite of how my stomach felt. Good motto, I said. He ran through his plan quick and clean. We'll do a walkthrough and tag rooms. We photograph items before we wrap. We label boxes by room and by name. If there's a dispute about an item, we set it aside and you tell us yes or no. We don't get in the middle of family arguments. It's not clearly hers, it doesn't go. Dot opened the door before I could knock. He stared at Marco, then at me, then past me like a man trying to see the person he wants to be angry at. You can't come in, said. Behind him, the front hall glowed cool and clean, scent of lemon cleaner and the faint sweetness of the candle Lindsay liked, the one that made their house smell like a readable idea of summer. We have a lawful right to retrieve Lindsay's personal property, I said calmly. We won't remove anything that's in dispute without a signed agreement. You're not coming in, he repeated, jaw tight. It's my home, Lindsay said from behind me, voice steady. I live here, Todd. Dord. He stared at her like. She had walked in speaking a language he didn't recognize. We'll do this tomorrow, he said, too loud, like volume had become his only tool. No, she said. We'll do it now. He stepped into the doorway, that old posture men use when they think they can make themselves bigger than the facts. I called Naperville PD's non-emergency line. We need a civil standby for a move out of personal property, I said. My voice shook on the first word and steadied by the last. Officer Carey arrived in 12 minutes. She was maybe 40, hair in a neat bun, eyes that said she'd seen the same scene too. Many times to be surprised, but not enough times to stop caring. She listened to both sides with her hands behind her back. This is a civil matter, she said, patient and firm. But I'm going to stand by while Ms. Whitaker, she nodded at Lindsay, removes the items she identifies as her personal property. Any disputed items will remain until resolved through civil court or agreement. It's all disputed, Todd said. No, Officer Carey said. It isn't. She turned to Lindsay. Ma'am, point us to your things. Lindsay's shoulders dropped a fraction as if something heavy had moved just enough to let a little air in. They started in the bedroom. Marco had a woman on his team named Tasha, who had the magic hands of a person who can wrap a glass lamp like the idea of it is. Fragile. Lindsay pointed, her shoes, her side of the closet, her toiletries, the bookshelf with her dog-eared paperbacks. The jewelry box Mary Ann had given her on her 16th birthday would worn smooth where Lindsay's fingers had lifted it 100 times. That's a wedding gift from my mom, Todd said, as Tasha reached for the duvet. The duvet? Tasha asked, eyebrow arched. The bed, the duvet, the whole room is a wedding gift by... Like life, he snapped, grabbing for the edge of the blanket. Marco stepped between them, hands up but not aggressive. If it's disputed, it stays. He said, We don't want trouble. It's hers. Lindsay said quietly, eyes on the duvet. The duvet was on my bed in college. The bed frame is yours. I don't want it. She glanced at the jewelry box. That's mine. Jewelry box stays, Todd said. I saw Lindsay's mouth form the shape of the next words before I heard them. No, she said, and wrapped her fingers around the box, holding it to her chest like a small necessary shield. This is mine. Officer Kerr's voice was calm steel. Sir, step back. He did, finally, with a sound in his throat that was part laugh and part warning. In the hallway, he leaned close enough for me to smell his aftershave. You think you're winning? He said. You think you're teaching me a lesson? What you're doing is destroying your daughter's life. I'm proving to her she can survive one, I said. We worked room by room. The kitchen was easier. The red Dutch oven that had been Lindsay's splurge when she got her first promotion at the museum. The chipped yellow mixing bowl that had been Mary Ann's, passed down with a recipe card for lemon bars in her looping hand. Todd tried to claim the blender was his. It probably was. We left it by 3. Half the truck was full. By 5, it was more than half and less than we hoped. There were boxes set aside near the front hall with a piece of tape on each and a Sharpie. Scrawled that read dispute. As the sun started down, a black SUV pulled up at the curb. A woman got out in navy slacks and a white blouse, hair clipped back, a canvas tote over one shoulder. She looked familiar in the way a type of person can look familiar, calm, competent. The kind of person you hope comes toward you in a hospital. Waiting room, Mr. Owens, she asked, stepping onto the grass. Yes, I said. Wiping my hands on my jeans because I didn't know where else to put the energy. Amelia Grant, she said, offering a hand. I'm the buyer. We shook. Her grip was warm and firm. Her eyes took in the porch, the notice still taped to the edge of the door frame like a fading flag. The boxes in the entryway, Officer Carey talking quietly to Tasha by the stairwell. Lindsay's shoulders set, Todd's mouth a straight line. This is a lot, she said gently. It is, I said. I'm sorry your first look is like this. She waved it off. I'm an attending at Lurie's, she said. My first looks at things are rarely like the brochure. I came to measure windows and ended up parking behind 3 ambulances once. She glanced at Lindsay. Is that your daughter? That's Lindsay, I said. And the gentleman? Her husband, I said. She nodded. Put something together I could see and something I couldn't, and then turned back to me. I have a request, she said. I braced without meaning to.
Okay.
My schedule is insane until then, and my kids start school early. I was planning to have the contractor do minor work next month, But watching this, I realized something. She paused. "This is not my business," she added, "and please tell me to step back if it feels like intrusion. But if your daughter needs a place, I would be willing to lease the house to her for a year as a sole tenant. I don't want a domestic dispute under my roof. I do want a responsible tenant. She looks like a responsible tenant. I wanted to ask you, before I talk to her, if that would help. I can do a month-to-month at first, with a clause that prohibits additional occupants unless approved in writing. I'm familiar with how to enforce it. Again, only if this is what she wants. Only if everyone agrees. But it seems like options might help." For a second, I couldn't breathe. It felt like someone had opened a window in a room I didn't realize was airless. "That would change a lot," said voice a little rough. "You should ask her. It's your house. It's her life." She nodded, and one more thing too, actually. She lifted her tote and pulled out a slim folder. "I also want to buy the patio furniture and the grill. They fit perfectly. It would simplify one problem on a day full of them." And she hesitated, then smiled slightly. "This is going to sound strange. But do you know a bistro in Paris? Near the Louvre Le Bagan?" I blinked. The name rang like a bell with a note I could almost place. "The little one with the red awning?" I asked. "We had a reservation there. We didn't go." She grinned, a flash of conspiratorial. "Delight the owner?" Lindsay laughed, surprised and raw. "I haven't felt like I had my name on anything for a while," she admitted. "You will," Amelia said. "If you want the lease, we can start it 2 days after your notice ends. Month to month. First, month covered by your dad as he promised. Then it's yours. We'll put one name on it. Yours. You can set the rules." Todd exploded then, predictably. "Absolutely not," he said, stepping in like the word absolutely was a weapon. "Can't exclude me from my own home." "It's not your home," Amelia said pleasantly. "The way a doctor says something like, 'We're going to go ahead and draw blood now. It's mine, and I get to choose my tenant.'" He sputtered words that didn't add up to sentences. "Officer." Carrie cleared her throat. "Sir," she said, "why don't we step outside?" They did. The porch swallowed their voices into a shape that had edges but not content. Inside, the house exhaled. Marco clapped his hands once. "Quiet, Kay," he said to his crew. "Let's wrap kitchen. If it's got a monogram of an L, it's a go." By 7, the truck doors clanged shut. Lindsay stood on the walkway with a single overnight bag on her shoulder, the jewelry box tucked under her arm like it was part of her body. Todd stood on the porch with his arms crossed, eyes narrow. Amelia shook my hand, then Lindsay's. "I'll email the draft lease in the morning," she said to Lindsay. "Take your time. Don't." Lindsay smiled like a person who wanted to practice. "I won't," she said. At home, I carried boxes into the spare room like a person ferrying stones across a river, because that's just what you do if you want to get to the other side. Lindsay set the jewelry box on the dresser and opened it. The little ballerina inside turned once and stopped. The spring long since tired of being a metaphor. We ate pizza on paper plates and watched Bailey from next door chase his own tail on the lawn because the world was still the world, even when yours changed shape at 10 p.m. After Lindsay had fallen asleep in the room down the hall where I'd once hid her Christmas gifts, I opened my laptop to clear away a few emails. There it was, buried beneath an airline credit and a notice from the storage unit. "Votre table vous attend, Moens." I clicked. The email was from La Bigaine. In careful English, with a handful of French words, like ribbon, they wrote, "Dear Mr. Owens, we are sorry your family could not join us last week. We understand sometimes life asks you to change the plan. We would like to keep your reservation for 1 year. Any Thursday at 19:30, you tell us, and your table is kept. We call it La Table Owens now. We hope to meet you and your daughter soon. The city keeps a chair for patient hearts. With warm regards, Henry." I read it twice, 3 times. Like magic might evaporate if I didn't hold it steady. I forwarded it to Lindsay and typed, "When you're ready." She texted back from down the hall 2 minutes later. "Let's be ready." The next morning, Carol called at 8:15. Todd's lawyer emailed. She said, "A lot of noise, no substance. He's threatening a restraining order that has no grounds. He's angry. He'll either burn this down or he'll crumple. Prepare for both. How do I do that? I asked. You keep your day boring, she said. You pack. You call the contractor to coordinate Amelia's schedule. You send Lindsay the number for a counselor. You don't try to fix what isn't yours to fix. I'm bad at that last. One, I admitted. Most parents are, she said. Try anyway. By noon, Amelia's lease draft hit my inbox. It was clean and kind. Lindsay Whitaker, sole tenant. No additional occupants without written permission, month to month at a fair rate, a clause about quiet enjoyment that read like a promise of peace. A line at the end that said, in lawyerly language, we keep the world off your porch unless invited. Lindsay read it at the table with her lip caught between her teeth. The way she used to read a new library book at age 9. It's mine, she said finally, not quite believing her own voice. It is, I said. If you want it. I do, she said, and then she texted Amelia. Yes, 30 seconds later. My phone buzzed with a message from Todd. If she signs that, she's done. I stared at the words. One that began this story like a door slammed I felt something like relief. It wasn't that he was wrong, it was that the sentence sounded like a threat, and also like a description of a horizon. Done can be another word for the end of a chapter, which is another way to say the beginning of something else. That afternoon, Amelia stopped by with a tape measure, and Marco's crew came back to move the disputed boxes into a small, locked room at Amelia's request until things sorted. Officer Carey swung through one more time, a nod like a punctuation mark. At 5, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Mrs. Peterson holding a casserole dish like a flag. Baked ziti, round 2, she said. It's what the universe requires whenever there's a lawyer involved. I laughed, took the dish, and promised to return it with something sweet. After she left, I checked my calendar, chuckled at the absurdity of it, and then emailed Henry at the bistro, Monsieur Merci. Thursday, 1930, in 2 months. 2 chairs. We will be there and ready. DONZI. Hit send. Then I sat on my back steps as the sun went down, the crickets tuning up like small instruments, and thought about houses and tables and how sometimes the thing that saves you is not a wall or a roof, but a chair with your name on it and a person you love sitting in the other one. 2 days later, the first of Todd's legal threats found paper. Carol forwarded a filing with 6 words in capital letters and not an ounce of gravity in any of them. We'll answer, she wrote. Don't let it pull you off course. We didn't. We put labels on boxes and soft words on hard. Days and 1 foot in front of the other, which is the only way a person ever actually walks anywhere. On day 28, 2 days before the notice period ended, Amelia knocked again. She had a set of keys and a small square envelope. Keys for Lindsay, she said, pressing them into my hand, then calling for Lindsay from the hall. And this is for you. She handed me the envelope. Inside was a printout on Labagain S. Letterhead. Confirmation. L.A. Table Owens. Judy, 19H30. Under it, in ink, a note in a script that looked like wind. A B in Tet. Save room for dessert. Ah, I laughed out loud. Lindsay laughed too. The sound full and free in a way I hadn't heard since she was 10, and found out you could mix 2 kinds of cereal and the world didn't end. We were going to be okay. Maybe not easy, maybe not soon, but okay, and then. Because life loves a curtain call, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Owens? A woman's voice said. This is Detective Rowan with Naperville PD. We need to ask you a few questions about an incident at Black Sparrow. My stomach went cold. What kind of incident? I asked. Someone cut the power to the house, she said. Someone slashed the tire on a moving truck. I closed my eyes and saw a pair of hands with a very small set of tools for very big problems. Okay, I said, and went to get my shoes. Detective Rowan sat across from me in a small interview room that smelled faintly of coffee. She pushed a tablet across the table. Paused frame glowed. Todd's SUV, easing to the curb at 1:12 a.m. the driver stepping out with a ball cap low and a flashlight in his hand. She tapped play. He crouched at the side of the house where the utility box sat. A minute later, the street darkened. Another clip, the mover's truck, a figure at the front tire, a quick slash, then taillights. We have 2 ring angles. She said the mover pressed charges. Dr. Grant is filing a no trespass order. We'll seek an emergency protective order for your daughter if she wants it. Lindsay did. She stood with me in the clerk's office that afternoon, voice steady as she told a stranger the worst truths of her marriage in 3 minutes. The judge granted an EOP. It printed warm from a machine, official and thin as a new skin. Officer. Carrie met us at Black Sparrow to serve it. Todd read it on the porch with his jaw clenched hard enough to leave dents in the air. This is what you wanted, he said to Lindsay, low and bitter. No, she said. This is what you taught me to need. Amelia changed the locks the same day and posted a bright, calm notice. No trespassing without written permission of owner. She signed Lindsay's lease with a fountain pen that made the moment feel ceremonial, then handed her a key on a plain brass ring. Your name, she said, smiling. The next 2 weeks were unglamorous and holy. We labeled boxes and argued kindly about where to put the Dutch oven. Lindsay found a therapist named Janelle who didn't flinch at anything and assigned homework that felt like a path made of verbs. Notice, name, choose. Carol filed a crisp response to Todd's attorney. The threats deflated on the page when faced with facts, Elaine called once voice small. We didn't mean to hurt you, she told me. We were excited. I believed both sentences could be true and still not be enough. On the last evening of September, Lindsay and I stood in her now home Amelia's house, leased to her alone. The sun went down in the backyard in those long Midwestern bands, gold over the fence I'd sunk post by post. She set Marianne's yellow mixing bowl on the counter and traced the rim with her fingertip. I can breathe, she said. Keep doing that, I told her. And we laughed, because sometimes the simplest advice is the truest. 2 months later, Paris unspooled beneath our plane like a city someone had lit from within. We walked from the Pont des Arts to a narrow street where a red awning glowed. Le Began inside, the air smelled like butter and something bright. Henry came from the kitchen, wiping his hands. Eyes kind. La Table Owens, he said, leading us to a small table by the window. As if he'd been keeping watch. He set down 2 menus we didn't need. Wine or water? Both, I said, and Lindsay squeezed my hand under the table, quick and sure. We shared a salad that tasted like sunlight, and split a roast chicken that would have made Marianne close her eyes on the first bite. When the creme brulee came, the sugar shattered under our spoons with a sound like a promise kept. Lindsay lifted her glass. To family, she said, meeting my eyes. The kind we choose and keep. Family only, I answered, and we both smiled at the new shape the words made. Outside, the city went on being itself bells, and scooters and laughter rising into a night that had room for us. Inside, at our waiting table, we ate slowly. We had all the time we needed.